Sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. We are a volunteer-run nonprofit organization that actively provides networking, educational, and social opportunities for over 10,000 people in film, television, and digital media in the San Francisco Bay Area and beyond. And I believe I have to I have to okay my recording, or it's not going to record me. Our mission is to empower and promote and celebrate women's creative work, and men are welcome as well. But if you're interested in joining, you can click in the chat for more information, and that includes men. On behalf of Women in Film San Francisco Board of Directors, I'd like to thank our board of directors because without our board, we wouldn't have these amazing classes and events. So I want to thank Diane Walsh, Carol Hall, Neil Nerdem, Kelly White, Nicole Carson, who's doing our tech today, Amy Zinn, Darlene DeRosa, and myself. And thank you again so much for choosing to spend your Saturday morning with us. Before we get started, a little housekeeping. If at any time during this morning you have a question, just please type it in the chat. And if you want to save the chat at the very end, you can do so by clicking on the three dots at the bottom of the chat screen. And then it will say save chat, so you can save it there. Also, to avoid any sound issues, please mute yourself now if you would. Every once in a while, we're hearing a television or a phone call or a dog barking. We'd also like to encourage you to go to the top right corner of the screen and just click on view. And then that gives you the speaker for the best visual experience. And that's housekeeping. And then I also would like to now thank our community partners for this event. Without our community partners, they're just so vital to our outreach and our expansion. I cannot tell you. We thank them for their generosity and their support of women in film, San Francisco Bay Area, especially right now. So many things are getting cut when it comes to funding. And so I'd like to thank the Vine, Larson and Associates, Jewish Film Institute, Black Women Directors, Women in Film Cincinnati, New York Women in Film and Television, and Black Film Space. Again, just without them, we would not have had so many people find out about this class today. So I'd like to now introduce our very special guest, Philip Shane, Women in Film San Francisco Bay Area members, advisors, and he helps advise us. So we're really lucky that he has become an advisor to us, and he's also a dear friend to me, and I'm very, very lucky to call him friend. He's an award-winning documentary filmmaker with over 35 years of experience. And Philip's work has appeared on PBS, ABC, the History Channel, and in theaters worldwide. His acclaimed films are being ELMO, and he received the special prize, the jury prize at Sundance for that. Dancing in Jaffa, Best Editing DocAviv Festival, and Tip of the Spear for ABC's new the DuPont Columbia Award broadcast journalism, and Martin Luther King, ABC's Emmy for outstanding historical programming. And then he's collaborated with music legends like the Beatles Revolution for ABC and WINGSPAN with Paul McCartney, as well as documentaries with Bruce Springsteen and Carly Simon, and then just so many more. And so, he's super qualified and just really also making these current projects in this new AI world, including a feature documentary about the iconic video game Myst and hosting his science podcast, What the If. He is a sought-after speaker on AI documentary filmmaking. So he's presented at Doc NYC, DC Docs, and the World Congress of Science and Factual Producers, The D Word, Peter Hamilton, documentary business and producer alliance for cinema and television. And his depth of classes are available on desktopdocumentaries.com. And he's just deeply, really committed to helping filmmakers harness the power of AI. So, to telling those compelling stories and really revolutionary ideas and helping kind of crack it open and showing us how to harness it today. So I would like to welcome, I wish we had a drum roll. Please welcome the incredible Philip Shane, and let's begin our event. And I'll stop talking. I'll finally shut up.
Oh, thank you, Julie. Thank you for those kind words, and welcome everyone. And I would love it if you're not on camera, if you can come on camera, I would love it. It's so much more fun to talk to actual humans. I'm sitting here with robots all day. It's nice to see you humans. So if you can come on and I can see your face. Hey, Peter, nice to see you. Steph, thank you. Marikar, welcome. Thank you all for coming on camera. So let's get started. What I'm going to do is, I think can consider today kind of a safari through some of the best AI websites for filmmaking. So like my favorite ride at my favorite ride at Disney World is the Jungle, what is it called? The Jungle.
Jungle Cruise, the Jungle Cruise.
Jungle Cruise. This is a jungle cruise through the wilds of AI. So let me start sharing here. So, oh, sorry. So in that vein, what I'm going to do is really just, I often think about how to do these classes. What's the best way, especially when it's a one-off class like this? And I think that what I'm going to do is show you why some of the most interesting highlights of each site, basically. Throughout that process, I'll be doing some how-to things, but, I can't go too deep in that. But I'm reserving, a generous, I think, 40 minutes for Q&A, because I really want to be able to talk about the things that you want to talk about and specific things you'd like to try. We can talk about that. So I'll be able to dig in a little deeper. If there's anything you feel like, oh, I want to know more about that, show me that again, or show me how to do that. We can talk about that. Let me start sharing. And also, I'm going to, well, let me start sharing and then I'll show you. So just a quick overview of the sites we're going to look at. The first one we're going to look at is ChatGPT. You know it, you love it. Then we're going to look at Midjourney, which is a site, probably the best site for creating images. Then we're going to look at Sora, which is kind of combined with ChatGPT, but you make videos with Sora. Then we're going to look at Suno, just a bit on Suno. Suno is a site where you can make music. Pretty cool. And lastly, we're going to look at what I think is one of my favorites, 11 Labs, which is a site originally just for generating voices, but has since expanded to a lot of other capabilities. So we'll look at that. At the end of all that, I'm going to show you something that a friend of mine made, a colleague. I run a weekly Zoom gathering on Monday nights Eastern time called AI Cafe. And by the way, after you take this class, you are instantly qualified to take that. It's to join us on that. It's a free thing. I can tell you more about that later. But basically, one of my colleagues in that AI Cafe showed us a sizzle reel, as he called it, kind of a trailer for a documentary idea that he's pitching that he made using all AI, and it's a beautiful piece of work. So I want to show you that kind of at the end as an example of maybe when you've learned all these tools, the kind of things you'll be able to create. All righty. Let me show you one thing. I start. Here's a little thing. Just some principles. I'll keep coming back to these, so I won't leave these on the screen, and you don't have to memorize these by any means. There will be no test, but just some ways I find it helpful to think about using AI. one of the main things I am pushing back against is the notion that there's a term called prompt engineering you may have heard of, where you have to learn how to write the correct prompt to get the thing to do what you want it to do. There's certainly tips you can learn, when I probably will cover some of those. But the most revolutionary thing about AI right now is that it is no longer like computer programming, where you had to know the exact syntax. One letter misspelled in a computer program and the whole thing doesn't work. AI isn't like that at all. So just some thoughts. Again, I'm going to keep coming back to these, but think about it. If you only take away one thing from today, I would love for you to sort of take away this vibe. So when you work with AI, I like to talk to it like an assistant. I like to just be clear in your language. Again, you don't have to be insanely specific or even knowledgeable by the language, or just be clear. We'll see examples of that as we go through. Sometimes you want to give it an example. If you show it an example, if you're asking it to do something, if you can show it an example of what it is you're asking it to do, you'll be much further along towards getting what you want. And think of it like a dance. There's a huge amount of I don't know if it's hype or fear or excessive optimism that somehow you ask AI to do something and it just does what you want. It does not at all. I don't think it's ever done what I wanted on the first try, which is not a bad thing. It's just, that's how it is. And so, in fact, like using any tool, but especially with AI, it's a particularly interesting experience. You ask it to do something, it does something different. You then feed off that. You say, oh, well, I don't want that, but I kind of like what you did there, but I don't like what you did there. And you try something new. And then, so it is like a partnership or a dance, an exploration, you and the AI exploring together. And you can do a lot of amazing stuff. Lastly, you do try again and again, keep coming back. I remember I've had people, in fact, my stepfather once told me he tried ChatGPT and it didn't work. And I asked him what he did, and he said he sat down to ChatGPT and he said, he had to give a speech. He said, write me a speech about this and that. And it didn't give him what he liked, and so he thought it didn't work. But in fact, it's all about asking it to do it, again, the way you like, work with it. All right. Let's look at a fun example of how you can get it to do what you want. I have an example here that I've typed out. Again, I normally, I can type these things in and we can watch in real time ChatGPT and the other sites reply. But for the sake of time, I've also got some of these already sort of pre-baked, as we might say. I recently went through a fun process of seeing how fast could I make something. And it's by no means Citizen Kane. It's by no means the most beautiful cinematic piece of work, but I just wanted to get something off the ground. So I started out by asking ChatGPT. I said, hi, ChatGPT. I do start by talking that way. Now, facetiously, I say that so that when the robot's uprising comes along, I may be spared because I was polite. But in actuality, I find it kind of gets me in the groove of, just like I was talking about, it's helpful to kind of be in a dialogue with the thing. So anyway, I find it more fun. I say, hi, ChatGPT. I would like to make a 2-minute documentary video about how the Great Pyramid of Egypt was built. I happen to love anything to do with the pyramids, I will watch. So now I do an interesting thing a lot of you may not know that you can do. And a lot of you might be nervous about it. I actually said, please research the topic and write a 2-minute narration script. So there's a new feature in ChatGPT if you're on the paid plan. And most of the things I'm going to show you are on the paid plans for the various sites. They tend to be anywhere from like $8 to $20 a month. We can talk about that later if you want. But you can often get some stuff for free. If you go to a site and you've never used it before, for free, you may be able to try things out 1 or 2 times before it asks you to pay. Anyway, this thing is definitely on pay. And it's a thing called Deep Research. And there's a button, usually a button at the bottom. I'm not seeing it right now. But you go into that mode and it does research. And it asks you, before I go into before it goes off and does its research, it asks me some follow-up questions. Could you share if you prefer the script to focus on a specific theory about how the Great Pyramid was built? Blah, 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 blah. Or should it cover a mainstream archaeological consensus? Also, would you like the tone to be more dramatic, educational, or neutral? So I just said, please cover a mainstream archaeological consensus. and have an educational tone. Understood. It went off and did that. And it took, interestingly, it tells me at the end, 17 minutes to do that research. Again, if you haven't tried deep research in ChatGPT, and I think it's also available, Google Gemini also has a deep research mode. What it does is it goes off and looks at hundreds and hundreds of websites and gathers an enormous amount of information, collates that, and writes you a nice summary of what it found. Or if you wanted to write a script, it just goes ahead and does that. So it wrote me this script. So again, you know, I could read this script and notice how it's full of, and this is, you know, I know in the past you've heard about how don't trust the AI, they make mistakes. That is still true. In fact, it says it right here at the bottom of the screen. ChatGPT can make mistakes.
So sorry, Philip. I think people are having a difficulty seeing your screen. I'm not sure if it was the spotlight or who can try to set that.
How's that?
Can people see his screen now?
Yeah, cool. I clicked back on the, I was on
Awesome.
the
Thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah. Sorry about that. That was a long time I was away. Nothing happened. You didn't miss anything. It was boring. It was this. But so ChatGPT has written a script. Oh, I was saying that, you know, you've heard in the past it would make mistakes. Well, yes, that's still true, but deep research mode is phenomenally better. Not only that, when it comes back, it's full of citations. So you can see citations here all throughout. I can click on the link and go to the exact place where this particular fact was taken from to do deep fact checking, which again, you should do if this was a thing, you know, a real thing you were going to put in broadcast. But anyway, it wrote us a script here and it's okay. So the next thing I can do is, and I'm just going to show you this one little thing and then I'm going to move on. You can get ChatGPT now to create pictures, which is a relatively new thing. You may not have known that was added. So I actually asked it, you'll remember if I go back to my original prompt here, I said, please research the topic and write a 2-minute narration script. So it's done that. Also, please create 16:9 images. And those of you who work in film understand that's just widescreen images that will be used as B-roll within the script. And I also had it then write prompts for video, which we'll look at later. But let's scroll down and let's look at it. It created pictures to go along with the script. Here's some of the pictures. Now, these aren't the greatest pictures in the world. They have a little bit of a textbook, old school textbook feel to them. They're also a little bit inaccurate, like the ramp is going up halfway up the pyramid when the pyramid's already done, etc. But you can work on all that stuff. Like I said, if you were to get deeper into it. But the fact that you can do it is pretty amazing. And it actually does a pretty good job. You know, if I didn't like the style, I could ask it to give it to me in a different style, etc. So that being said, talking about images, I'm going to move on to a much more advanced image site called Midjourney.
So on the chapter of images, topic of images, Philip, like would storyboards be an option for a script? Like you upload a script and it can.
Yeah. Just do me a favor. I'll have a Q&A at the end so we can get to it then. I can show you all kinds of all different things. Yeah. But yes and no. Yes and no. There are other sites that are better for that. So yeah, Midjourney is kind of the industry standard website now for creating images. Many sites allow you to create images, as we've seen. But let's just take a look at some of the stuff we can do here. Here's some of those pyramid shots done. At first, I asked it, I gave it the same prompt that I was using in ChatGPT, and Midjourney gave me some nice things that they're still sort of in that artist sketching style. So then I asked it to do things that were a little bit more just cinematic. There we go. Yeah, so here I started to get things that are more cinematic. And I'll just point out that prompting Midjourney is different than prompting ChatGPT in ChatGPT, you have a conversation with it. In Midjourney, it's a little bit more mechanical, so to speak. But here, my prompt, and if you could see my prompt here, was an ancient Egyptian boat with stone blocks being lifted into the quay. Behind them is an unfinished pyramid and the Nile River in Egypt. Cinematic epic IMAX film. That was the key phrase to get it to give me this kind of look. So that's pretty cool. In Midjourney, you can also edit things. So just for the sake of example, I'm going to go into edit mode here. Second. Okay. And let's say, I don't know, let's say I want to get rid of this whole boat. Let's see if I can do that. Over here on the left, I can choose my brush. It says brush size. And that just, you know, again, this is if you've used Photoshop or anything like that, not that different. It's not nearly as sophisticated as Photoshop, but let's try this. And actually, you know what I'm going to do? Just for the heck of it, just to show you how dramatic this can be, I'm going to actually replace this with a different kind of, somebody shout out something you would like me to replace the boat with. And it can be absurd.
A leopard.
What's that? A leopard?
Yes.
A leopard. A leopard.
I love how decisive that was. You preloaded that, didn't you?
I pictured it there. We're filmmakers. Come on.
Here in the upper right corner, you can see, and it's a little bit tiny, and I can't blow it up, I don't think. Anyway, you can kind of see it generating 4 options. Wow, look at that. Oh, you know, and it did a nice thing. It gave the leopard a place to stand. I was curious, what's it going to do about the fact that we're in the water, right? So that's kind of amazing. And I can look at there's another one, although that's more of a, I don't know the difference between a cheetah and a leopard. I'm going to trust Midjourney to know what it is. Anyway, oh, look at that. And it's got he's got a wake. Anyway, pretty cool. Pretty cool. So I want to show you some other stuff that I've done with Midjourney because I know a number of you are documentary filmmakers like myself. And I'm going to exit edit mode and zoom back here a little bit. So I did something, I was like, what's something that might, you know, in documentaries, often we have interviews with people and they're often telling very personal stories and we have no way to illustrate them. So we have to either do a reenactment, you know, or we have to maybe use old photographs or old archival or some combination of all of that, or you know, hand-drawn animation. You can do all kinds of different things to illustrate a story that someone is telling. And occasionally they come on camera, the talking head, so-called talking head comes on camera and says a particular phrase, but, you know, we're illustrating a story. So I imagine someone telling a story about, I was working on a documentary and somebody was talking about when their parents told them they were getting divorced. And the main character was a young person at the time. So I just made some images for that kind of thing. It seemed pretty, and I tried it in, so my prompt here is a documentary film, if you can see this, shot on grainy Kodak film. It's the 1970s, it's night. A middle-class suburban family is having a tense family meeting in the living room. Dad is interrogating the children. I said dad is interrogating the children just because I was trying to get the father character to have a particular look. Mom is anxious and looking away from the father, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We just got different looks here. Here's a family in the desert walking. Again, I just find it amazing that this is not real. You know, these are like flawless, beautiful things. And we'll see later when we go to video, which we'll do in 4 minutes, we can make these things come alive if we want. Different styles. Here's another thing. I was working on a film about a doctor who was from Nigeria, and he was telling stories of his growing up. So I kind of created some pictures here for that. He told a story of his father sitting him down and giving him a talk, an inspiring talk, you know. So, you know, these could work as illustrations. What else can I show you? One important thing you should know about Midjourney is, and this is one of the newest features, there is a couple new things I'll show you real quick. One is called, so one of the most important things you want to do is take a picture that already exists. In fact, a lot of people will have a photograph, let's say, of their character. And they, you know, I just have this one photograph, and they wonder, can they make it alive, or can they put that character in different locations, for instance? So you can do that. I'm going to grab a picture. Let's say here I have this picture here. I'm just grabbing a picture that I had uploaded earlier. And it's a thing here. I don't know if you can see this. I'll zoom in on it for a second. It's called omni-reference. Used to be character reference if you've learned Midjourney before. And with that, let's take a look at this person. Okay, see, this boy. Okay, that's what he looks like. Let's put him in, let's say, a teen boy standing in a shopping mall in the 1980s. That's where I would have been found. Give that a second. While that's going, let me just show you some other things. You can just do absolutely bizarre things. Like here, I was creating a Roman temple inside Times Square. Kind of fun. For those of you who are making fiction films, you could also create that. In fact, again, we'll go to video in just a second. This is the best way to start creating videos, is to go to Midjourney and create an image and really get it the way you like, get that first frame the way you like, and then take it to the video site. All right. He's still rendering, but it's okay. It kind of looks like it. So the idea is that you can adjust the strength of this character weight, and that's the way, or omni weight as they call it. And this is the way you would get your what they call consistent characters. It was one of the things that was bedeviling people who use AI forever, because in other words, every time I make an image, the person in the image looks different, and we needed to get it to the point where it could be the same person no matter what you do, and that's what this omni reference.
Philip,
Basically.
question from the chat. Can you redesign an existing image by uploading it? Like uploading an image here of your own and then edit and redesign it?
Yeah.
Cool.
Whoops. I can go to upload, and I'm just going to grab one of my pyramid images. Right. Actually, I'm going to take this picture of Herbie the Love Bug for the heck of it. Anyway, I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole, but yes, you kind of can. But I will say this: it's not like Photoshop by any means. But you can do things like you can put it into that editor that I showed you, and kind of highlight a certain area and get it to erase something. But you can do that much better in Photoshop. So in general, I would only use new images as a starting point to make another image. So if that's what you were thinking, in other words, here I have this Volkswagen, I could put this Volkswagen in, I actually put that in the pyramids. Anyway, this is a different Volkswagen, but I put it in there and you can do things like that. So yes and no, I guess is the answer, which by the way is often the answer with AI because everything's kind of like new and sort of just trying things out. So I'll come back if that, if you want me to talk about that more in Q&A, I can definitely do that. Okay. All right, I want to move on to Sora. Sora is one of many video websites, by no means the only one. And in fact, the funny thing about AI is that every week a different one is the best one. There was a time where Sora was like by far the best one, and then there's all these other sites. There's probably about 6 or 7 or 8 right now, all of which, depending on what week it is, one of them's taken over and one of them's not. But in general, they all basically do the same thing. They each has maybe little tiny different features that they can do. So let's look at Sora. The reason I want to talk about Sora is combined. It's the same company as ChatGPT. It's OpenAI. So if you're on the paid plan, you get Sora as well as ChatGPT. It's all part of a package. So it's a very convenient one to use. And I want to show you some of the things I did with the pyramids. So before I show you putting in an image and then sort of animating that, I just want to look at some of these things. So I asked it to create some shots of building the pyramids. So the prompt here, you can see the prompt here at the bottom, was police spot. So I said, I wanted to get like a handheld look, and I wasn't getting anything. Again, another thing you may learn is sort of how to trick the AI into doing what you want. So I was getting handheld videos looks that were kind of okay. I wanted it to have a documentary feel, even though it was taking place 5,000 years ago. And somehow I discovered that if I say police body cam, it gave me like a really cool wide angle look, kind of a GoPro look. So police body cam video of ancient Egyptians high up on the Great Pyramid, lifting a massive stone block into place with wooden cranes and ropes. Pretty cool. And again, I have to point out that everything here is generated by the AI, right? There's no actual video here, and yet this is pretty good. Now, 1 out of 4, maybe 2 out of 4 videos that you get on each roll is good. Some of them may have weird distortions and things like that, but pretty good. Look at some of the others. Here's another one. And these really look like these reenactments you might see on History Channel or Discovery Channel. So much so that it's like, well, clearly they trained on it. I don't know. But pretty cool. Here's another one. This is a pretty cool one. So you can imagine if I were to get this shot, I would have probably had to go to California, or if I was already in California, I would have to go out to the desert with actors and props and a stunt person and a crane or who knows what. And here we just type a few words and we get these shots. Really cool. Now this one's not perfect. There's some anachronistic details that show up here, but I just love in the background, you kind of see the whole landscape with the an already finished pyramid and things like that. He's got some paper, which he would not have had, so we wouldn't use that part. I also asked it to create some pictures of women painting inside the tomb, painting the hieroglyphics. Again, we got some pretty cool kind of reenactment type shots. Okay, let's try to make some things from images. Let's grab an image. Oh, sorry. Down here where it says image, you can choose between, you can create images in Sora. And in fact, most of the video sites now do allow you to create images because I think they understood that, well, one, they could do it because all, video is simply 24 or 30 images a second. So they can easily make one image, but also people were going to Midjourney and stuff like that to create it. So That being said, Midjourney still kind of gives you the best quality. So I'm going to create video, okay? But I want to do it by starting with an image. So I can hit the little plus button here, okay? And going to upload from device. And I'll grab one of my pyramid images. So here, give me 1 second. Cool. Got our one of, this is our boat on the Nile. Now I can choose the aspect ratio, of course. I despise the vertical, so I will go with the horizontal. A little bit like that. And I can choose the resolution. I'm going to leave it on 480. You can go up to 1080p. There are also other AI apps that you can use to up-res things pretty easily. I'm just going to leave it on 480 because that's the fastest to render for us. But noting you can do that. I can choose the length, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, or 20 seconds. 20 seconds is pretty generous. I'm going to stick with 5. And how many versions do I want? You know, it'll do up to 4. I'm just going to choose 1 again, just for, well, let me do 2. We can see the difference between 2. Right. And there's a preset here. You can choose different styles if you want it. I'm going to leave it as is because it'll do it, I believe, in the style of that the image is already in. But we'll come back here. We could, if we wanted, have it done in a film noir style or archival or all kinds of different things. Okay. And I'm going to hit render. And that is going to go. That's going to take a minute. Right. So while that's going, I want to show you another cool thing. There is a very interesting feature that Sora has that the others don't. Others may have different ways of doing the same thing, but oops. Grab one of my videos here. Let's see. Oh, look, we have some horses. I think we need to take one of these horses. Let me grab this. Here's some animated horses. Okay, so the horse is running and it's okay. It sort of goes to black and white for some reason. And let's say we don't like that. You can actually go into these things now and kind of adjust what happens, which is a pretty new thing. So I go to edit story, little button down here. And I can change the length. For instance, I could now make it a 10-second video if I wanted. But I could also do things like, I'm just going to say, I'm going to insert a thing here that says the horse sprouts wings and flies away. There's a little feature here that a lot of the AI have, which is it will automatically expand your prompt to make it, theoretically, it'll do a better job by expanding the language into a more AI-friendly and more descriptive tone. So let's find out. Create. All right. Let that go, and we'll go back and find our pyramids. What is that? Oops. They are still generating. No, here we go. Okay. Ooh, that's quite nice. So it did a little tracking. Oh, no, it doesn't make sense. So I don't know what's going on there. Kind of interesting. Let's see if the other one's a little bit more realistic. Yeah, and notice how it's chosen 2 shots, which I didn't ask it to do. So I'd have to go in and edit it. But I'm just going to do one last thing and then we'll come I'll come back later and see how it did. Let's change that. Camera zooms in on the boat. We'll see what happens. We'll come back later. All right. Moving on to Suno music. So I'm not going to spend too much time here on the music site, so I can spend more time on 11 Labs, the voice site, which has a lot more capabilities. But I'll just show you that this does exist. If you have not tried some AI music sites, I think you will be rather astonished. You may love it, you may hate it, again, depending on your feelings about how it gained all these capabilities. I have some musician friends who hate this, and I have some others who love it as a creative tool. So you can go either way on it. But pretty much, you ask it to make music, it makes music. I asked it to create some music for my pyramid documentary, and I gave it a prompt of quiet, introspective score for a documentary film. Okay, so that all we understand. Then I added something which you may wonder, why did I do that? So quiet introspective score for a documentary film about an architect designing an Egyptian pyramid, building from quiet to medium intensity. So the reason I said an architect designing an Egyptian pyramid is sometimes the music I was getting was kind of epic, like adventure film type things, and I wanted to get something that felt more like an artist doing their work. So I just did that to sort of get it to tone down the music. But you type in the prompts and it immediately gives you anywhere from 2 to 4 versions right within 15 seconds. So let's listen to, let's see, I've got 3 versions here from that same prompt. Let's hear how they say. So it felt a little bit James Bondy for me.
Where's Tom Cruise?
Yeah. Better, but also still a little bit like a murder mystery. And then the final one. I like that one. You know, in fact, I can do something fun like let that play in the background while I go back to Sura. And well, let's use that music with our horses. Let me turn down the music. Yeah, completely insane. That was not helpful. I don't know what. We're not having good luck with Sora today. Let's look at our pyramid guys. Oh, you know, let me show you this other thing. Keep getting sucked back into Sora. Here's just some other interesting things that I was playing around with. These are from a photograph. So I had a photograph of like an astronaut walking down the street in like a parade. And you could just animate it with it. And then I went to that, but with the archival filter. Cool. Lost my pyramid friends. All right, we'll come back. Yeah, so that's Suno. Like I said, you can get into Suno. The one thing I'll mention just about Suno before I move on is that I noted here building from quiet to medium intensity, because the one thing we have in film that's difficult is you need that music to do something within the scene. And this does a fairly good job. I think as time goes on, they're going to start doing things where you're really going to be able to go in there and keyframe things more exactly. Like I needed to do a drum hit here or this or that. But for now, you can get it to do things like build from a very simple thing to a much bigger thing and so forth. So that's Suno. All right, now let's look at 11 Labs. This is an astounding site that if you used it in the past and you hadn't used it in a long time, you'll be amazed. I'm still amazed at how many things they've added to it. The rudimentary thing about it, basically the super basic thing, is essentially it turns text into voice. So you'll remember my script from the beginning that I had way back in ChatGPT. We asked it to write us a script, right? Which we got here, narration scripts, a 2-minute script. I copied that, I pasted it here. And then you choose a voice, select a voice. And so I chose this voice called Bill Oxley. Bill Oxley is not a real person, I don't believe. This is a synthesized voice. They have hundreds, if not thousands, of voices to choose from. And they're pretty good, some better than others, and some, better just depending on the style of thing you want. And it is a really wide variety to choose from. They also, interestingly, do have real people. There are real voiceover artists who have, kind of given their permission to have their voices synthesized, and those are pretty good too. So let's just take a listen.
The Great Pyramid of Giza stands as a testament to ancient Egyptian engineering. Built about 4,500 years ago during Pharaoh Khufu's reign, app.com.au. It served as his monumental tomb.
That's a risk when you paste things. Let me keep going.
.com.au. Despite popular myths, it was not built by slaves, but by skilled Egyptian workers.
So, pretty cool. Now, let me show you some of the more amazing things. Let me just show you real quick. I can change the voice just so you can hear the different voice. So, let's see. Doris Radio. What's that? Oh, Adam. Adam Stone, late night radio. Let's see what he sounds like.
Despite popular myths, it was not built by slaves but by skilled Egyptian workers. App.com.au. Archaeologists have discovered the tombs of these builders near the pyramid, confirming they were respected laborers who were well treated, not enslaved.
So, cool. You can go on and on and on, obviously. That's fun. And the reason, this is the reason these annoying web links are in there is because I just copied it from ChatGPT with the citation still in there. So obviously you want to clean up the text before you give it when you're going to do it for real. All right. Dubbing. So here's a fun thing. This is, you can take a video, you can upload a video. So we have this video from one of the last times I did one of these for your group. And there we go. There's Julie. Okay. So let me play the original video.
For those of you that are new to Women in Film San Francisco Bay Area, we are a volunteer nonprofit organization that actively provides networking, educational, and social opportunities for over 10,000 people in film, television, and digital media in San Francisco.
Okay, so that's fine. what if you wanted to instantly, and I mean instantly, just about, turn this into, let's say, Spanish? I just click Spanish down here. And let's see, did it do it?
Aquellos de ustedes que son nuevos.
Yeah. It doesn't change the lips. There are other sites where you can do things like change the actual lip sync. This leaves the video the same, but it does an okay job of, well, first of all, it translates it into another language. It keeps your voice, which is amazing, speaking this other language. I have had people who speak these other languages, and you may be some of them, who understand them and have said it actually does quite a good job, which is nice to know. And let's hear.
Para aquellos de ustedes que son nuevos en Women in Film San Francisco Bay Area, somos una organización sin ánimo de lucro compuesta por voluntarios que ofrece activamente oportunidades de networking, educativas y sociales para más de 10,000 personas en cine, televisión y medios digitales.
All right. Fun stuff. You could do, let's try Chinese and then we'll move on to another thing.
Dat daar gaugat shan van to geket tare fang. Sir, garantin sharudi on yo hang giso che bei liu bekide jan fei li pu xie 它是一位浴火殊荣的电影制作人。
Cool. You can go up here. Let me go back to Spanish for a second, just so I can slightly understand what it is. And what it shows you is, again, nobody typed in this text. I didn't enter the text. It got all this from the audio of the video itself. So essentially transcribed it itself, right? And then did its own translation. But if you needed to tweak that translation, suppose you decided this wording wasn't correct, you could just go in there and change it. Pretty cool. Now, the fact that it does transcription like that indicates that, in fact, transcription is one of the better things that you can do. You can just give it stuff to have it do translation. You can also have it do things like this. Create an audiobook is an interesting thing. You could give it a bunch of text and actually have it understand where the voice should change. That's a rather amazing thing. Just based on the context, and it could sort of create, again, it's still just getting started, so it's a little bit primitive, but if you spend enough time with it, you could tweak it and make it sound great. It'll do things like understand, oh, this character is a young girl and this character is an old man, and give it appropriate voices like that. This speech to text is where you would transcribe things if you gave it anything, and it does a pretty good job. Actually, I think of all the AI transcription services, people are saying that 11 Labs does one of the best. So that's just a helpful thing to know. Okay. I'm going to show you now this example of something that is really quite good. Like I mentioned, this is this sizzle reel, this promo reel, this trailer, as you call it, that's going to demonstrate a lot of things that we've looked at and more about what you can do with video. We can talk about it on the other side, and we can start our Q&A. Right. I'm just going to play for 1 second and then just tell me, somebody verify for me that you can hear sound and see picture. Yeah. Okay. All right, here we go. So sorry, what this is this is a teaser for a documentary series, a proposed documentary series about the authors of some of the great fantasy literature series out there. So J.R.R. Tolkien, Frank Baum of Wizard of Oz, Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland, things like that. So kind of a biography type series, but using a lot of imaginative imagery, including taking imagery from their stories and imagining that becoming part of the documentary. So let's take a look.
Who made us?
Who made us? Giving us light
from their darkness.
In the shadow of smokestacks, factory whistles and financial ruin, four men imagined an elsewhere. Famed author of The Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien, knew orphanhood. Raised in the shadows of Birmingham's factory chimneys after losing both parents before age 12, he became a ward of the church.
Father witnessed the old world dying. He built Middle-earth as refuge from the world that gave him nothing.
Say, my playmate. Is it any wonder he created a world where the smallest creatures could change the fate of kingdoms?
My mind has changed, my body's frame, but God, I like it.
Charles Lutwidge Dodgson, known to history as Lewis Carroll, lived divided and broken. A mathematician who wrote 11 books on logic and numbers, yet also created literature's most famous nonsensical wonderland.
Father was unfixable.
A reverend son who suffered epilepsy, migraines, stammering, partial deafness. He could calculate complex equations, invent fantastical worlds, but couldn't maintain a positive bank balance. A mathematician who couldn't add.
You'll never know unless we go, so let me show you.
Hans Christian Andersen was born into poverty so extreme that it would later colour his darkest tales. Before he was a teenager, he had worked in a factory and witnessed his mother reduced to begging, sleeping in the same bed where his father's corpse had lain. With calculated persistence, Andersen climbed the social ladder, writing flattering poems to kings and queens and insinuating himself into the homes of the wealthy, becoming what one patron called a living work of charity.
Open my heart and let it bleed out to yours.
L. Frank Baum knew failure intimately, a man who watched his hardware store crumble, his newspaper fold and his theatrical ambitions falter. Yet from these ashes emerged Oz.
Father built this yellow brick road. He knew what happened when we followed the paths determined for us in life by others.
At his height, Baum was among the wealthiest writers in the world. By his death in 1919, he had nothing. He died broke.
Father would say, "I think you are wrong to want a heart. It makes most people unhappy. If you only knew it, you are in luck not to have a heart." He knew what it meant to feel it break.
Was this Baum's confession that to create one must be heartless? That ambition requires a certain ruthlessness, even if you lose everything? These four men emerged from different corners of industrialized society, yet each faced the same crushing pressure to conform, to be the gears that surrender to the machinery of progress, to be the meat in the meat grinder. Must ruthless ambition be the price of escaping an impoverished existence at the cost of everything?
Father.
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 What price would you pay?
What price would you pay?
For immortality.
For immortality.
All right. There we go. Questions?
Oh, there's many questions. You know, normally there's no questions in the chat, and there's so many questions. It's mind-bending.
All right.
Nicole, have you been looking at questions? And I can also help with questions. There's so many. Just that last piece of music is like one of my favorite songs. How is that legal?
So that actually, there's two things in here that are not AI. The music is not AI, as you said. That's an actual song. And the script is not AI. Michael wrote the script. You know, he might have used AI and just in the process a little bit of tweaking, you know, thinking it through or something like that. But the words, he wrote all the words. Those could have been AI just as easily as anything else. So some of the, you know, let me just real quick, because I know there's probably a lot of questions as to what's what. Everything, for the most part, everything is AI. Everything color is obviously AI. And I think the viewer knows that, right? Because there's a whole nother question about in documentaries, being clear with the viewer as to what's real and what's not. And this blurs that a little bit, perhaps a little bit too much, in fact. It sort of doesn't matter because it's a promo reel. In the actual show, I think you'd want to be a little bit more careful. But so everything is AI. That was very here's what I love is that he used things that AI weirdness, like clocks that don't make any sense. They have more than two hands, and which is kind of craziness, but it totally works because it's this imaginary dreamscape. Some of these things, some of these things are actual archival that he then extended or put into motion with AI. So
the shadow of smokestacks, factory whistles, and financial ruin. 4 men
that all seemed like real archival, probably. What they've done with all the photographs that look like the person is sitting there looking around and talking is generally he had a photograph, which was the first frame. And then, like we saw with Sora, you can put it in, or any of the video websites, put it in there, and you just sort of animate the photograph. So these are photographs that have sort of been animated.
And elsewhere. Famed author of the...
we had one question early on. Is Clauda, C-L-A-U-D-A, still recommended?
Claude is very good, yeah. But I tell you, and Claude was my favorite for a very long time. Claude is a better writer. Well, it used to be that Claude was a better writer. I don't know that the difference is as extreme as it used to be. So what you get, what the value of your ChatGPT subscription, however, compared to Claude there's no comparison. I mean, I get so much more with ChatGPT. So I hardly use Claude at all, but I'll show you one thing here. Just another bonus tip. Let me get Claude here for a second. I think Julie mentioned, so I have a podcast that I do every week, a science podcast called What the If. It's a lot of fun. We basically do thought experiments each week, and I have 2 scientists as co-hosts. But when that show is done, so we record for about an hour, I then have a lot of promotional stuff I have to do. I have to create, let's look at all the different things. I have to create a title for the episode. I have to create the cover art. I have to write an episode description for the podcast player. I have to create a bunch of social media material. So I have to write a bunch of tweets, an Instagram post, a LinkedIn post, a 1-sentence blurb, and an email for our Patreon subscribers that tells them about some other stuff. In the past, it took me, plus I do a little bit of sound mix for the podcast. So the whole process, the post process, took me about 3 hours typically, and I did that for years. I've been doing the podcast for over 8 years now. But when AI came around, I said, oh, wow, AI could suggest, what I do is I actually give, and I use Claude because I like Claude as a better writer. You could do this to ChatGPT or Gemini or any of the others, just to be clear. But what I do is up here, you see, I've uploaded it. I gave it, this is last week's episode. I gave it the transcript of here's a transcript of the whole episode. All the dialogue was instantly transcribed by another AI that I used. And I then asked Claude to read that transcript. So it basically listens in a way to the entire show and then suggests titles. And it suggests titles because I've given it examples, which, remember, I mentioned in one of my tips, sort of principles in general for using AI, is if you can give it examples, it's very helpful. So, for instance, I have here in the instructions that I gave it examples of good titles, and here are some titles that I like. So basically, it reads the transcript. It gives me 10 titles, so I can choose one, and it gives me it comes up with an idea for the cover art that I then paste into ChatGPT. So ChatGPT creates the image and all these other things. It does all of this stuff instantly. So the last pro tip I'll just mention for this one thing is when I began doing this, I did every one of these things one at a time. So I would say, Claude, here's the transcript, read the transcript, and suggest 10 titles for me. And then it would do that. And then I would, start again and ask Claude, okay, Claude, now I want you to write the episode description. And I'd work on the episode description. Eventually, I got to the point where I had really refined just the right prompt to get me the thing I liked, to get me an episode description in the style I liked, to get me tweets in the style I liked. And I combined all of those things into one, what I call super prompt, so one document where it asks Claude all at once, do all of these different things. And you can do that. So you can combine, if you're asking Claude or any LLM to do a lot of things, you could write one document. I don't recommend you do this from the beginning. Really get familiar with how they work. Really, just because if you do give it too much at once and you don't have a lot of experience with it, it's going to mess up and you're going to get frustrated and not know how to figure out how to do it. You have to build these things up slowly. But once you get to the point where it's doing some procedure that you really like, you can then put all the prompts into a single document with examples for every one of those things. And then all at once does that thing. So what used to take me 3 hours now takes me about half an hour. So pretty incredible.
Another question from earlier in the chat is, once you upload your own image, does it become the property of Midjourney?
So the legal stuff, I don't know, and it changes constantly. But I would say, in general, I don't think it becomes I don't know. So I'm going to say I don't know that it becomes the property, but you are sharing your stuff. So you have the same issues, right? It's definitely not 100% like, oh, everything's fine, it's all yours. That being said, generally on the higher level plans, especially with ChatGPT, you get more security and perhaps more, again, I'm hesitant to say we retain the rights even more because who knows, but yeah, I would just say look into it and be cautious. Yeah.
Well, and like you said, Philip, it changes constantly. So, like with my documentary, The True Story of Tamar de Lempicka, we had UCI Law Clinic going through every single clip on our log constantly. And anything that we used, we only used a few things that were AI generated. And they approved those immediately. Whereas, I mean, we'd have like 10 meetings on something else. So it was approved immediately. So, is that going to change in the near future? Yeah, I'm sure.
Well, also every single company has a different plan. It's a total Wild West right now. There are absolutely no laws. I mean, it's barely begun. I mean, there are the old copyright laws, and it's going to take time, like all new things. You actually need to have court cases so that the law can be evolved. I was just this week speaking to the New York State Bar Association, and they asked me to come and give a demonstration like I just gave you guys of how do people use AI. And from that, they're like, basically, oh, because we're going to be representing people like you, and perhaps on the other side representing, broadcasters. And they were all just saying, we just need to figure out the laws at this time. So everything's a
Exactly.
wild.
And let's just like today, it's like we could go down the ethical, and I feel like all of us here today are the good people that are trying to do the right things and be ethical. And that's why we're trying to learn it so that we have a voice at the table, so to speak. But I think this is about learning it so we don't become dinosaurs and not sitting for hours talking about the ethical and the scary. It's like, it's here, it's landed, it's taken over.
Yeah.
Let's learn this. And let's not become roadkill. We have somebody else.
But that being said, I'll just say cautious. So for instance, I'm working on documentaries about, when I do biographical documentaries like I'm doing now, I don't upload the transcript. I can use transcripts. It's another thing you can do, by the way. Boy, you can give ChatGPT a transcript and it can help you in a lot of interesting ways. But in general, I'm not giving it like, a really personal interview with somebody because we haven't yet worked out the top security of that kind of thing. But you can do things like, when I'm working on a subject, For instance, when I was working on that documentary about the Nigerian doctor, he was interviewed, I'm trying to build up the story of his life. So he has been interviewed hundreds and hundreds of times all over YouTube. He's been interviewed by the BBC and this, and I mean, he's been doing it for 30 years and stuff like that. He's a well-known guy. And so I get transcripts of all of those things, and I give it to ChatGPT, no problem, because they were already public kind of things. And it could, one thing I did was give it just like a vast amount of interviews, like 50 interviews, and then I said, create a timeline of his life. Because throughout those interviews, occasionally he would say, well, when I was 9, I moved from Nigeria to London or whatever. And it picks that up and it grabbed all these little things and then just boom, gave me a timeline.
Unbelievable.
Cool.
We have a question from AK regarding, so could creating pictures be able to create storyboards often of an upload script? Can you upload your script, which is what you're saying, be careful with, but can you do that and get your storyboards?
Yeah, so essentially I did that with the, so here's my pyramid. Remember, I asked it write a script, right? So let's say, so it wrote the script, here's the script. And then I said, create images from the script. So you could consider these, there we go. You could consider these images part of a storyboard, right? It doesn't have to look, I'm not sure what stylistically you're thinking. If I wanted it to be in storyboard style of being a pencil drawing or an ink wash, I could do that. But essentially any image is an image of a storyboard. So, but there is another bonus thing, total bonus. There's a site called LTX Studio. And it does interesting things like, it's going, what it does is you give it a script, or you type an idea, give it one sentence, or you can actually have nothing and it'll just make up a story for you. But I gave it a script. I started a little project about the scientists who are controlling the Mars rover, right? So they're working at Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California, and they're controlling the rover on Mars and studying Mars. And the way LTX Studio works is it automatically creates these scenes. I didn't create these scenes. I would want to go in there and tweak them, of course, but like many AI things, it just automatically gives you a whole bunch of stuff. So it created, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just a whole bunch of different scenes, and within them, individual shots. So it began with scene 1, and I created characters. So part of this, when you're setting up a project, you choose the characters and you choose a little avatar of them, and so forth. So it wrote a scene where Dr. Ellen Foster stands in her cluttered office, gazing at a monitor displaying Mars rover data. And then it imagined the scene in storyboard fashion, in a way. It kind of imagined the shot. So it'd be done, shot 1, and it wrote here, an extreme close-up of a coffee pot. Again, I didn't type any of this. It just did that. Shot 2, Dr. Ali Santana gazes intently at the monitor, eyes wide, and then another shot, and then another shot. And you can export these in a bunch of different ways. So you could, again, use this to imagine your story and then print it out or export a video as a storyboard of sorts. Another thing you can do is,
while you're looking, this is kind of the same vein for exporting combined those original quality. How do you recommend exporting, and any alternatives for these kinds of AIs?
Yeah, I was going to show you, I can't find it for this moment, but basically from LTX Studio, you can also create a pitch deck, which is, again, it's crude, it's simple, but it is elegant. It's nicely done. So you can also do that.
So Philip, was that from uploading a script? You had uploaded a script into LTX and it did that?
No, but you could.
Oh, you could. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Did that answer your question about storyboards?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I think the
sorry.
question that Julie was reiterating is how would you recommend bringing all these assets together and then exporting them combined in their original quality?
So do you mean like from Sora and stuff?
Yeah, I think from each
Yeah.
various source.
Yeah. So from any, whatever it is, right? Let's say it's ChatGPT making an image or Sora making a video or whatever. When you go to save it, you get whatever resolution it is. Now, things tend not to actually be that high resolution. So there's something else called, there's an app called Topaz.
Yeah, and I'm using Remy, which I don't think is as good as Topaz, but if you have a photo that's okay out of Mid-Journey, you could always put it into, let's say, like Remy, or I don't know if Topaz does the same thing, but it makes it higher resolution.
That's what Topaz does. There is no competition for Topaz right now.
Okay, good.
However, it's not cheap. So, so I shouldn't say that. There is another website called Magnific, and maybe there's Remy. You know, there's a zillion sites out there that will promise to upload, but I'll just say FYI, Topaz is kind of the industry standard at the moment. So,
and then do you have any recommendations for open source alternatives? Any of these?
No. I'm not really up on that, honestly. The thing about open source is, and this may be why that person is asking, you then could feel, in other words, you would do the entire thing locally on your computer, right? Well, you could, although most people don't have a computer that's fast enough or don't have the expensive video card that would allow you to do it at high quality and fast enough. So you rent a server through Hugging Face or something like that. But as far as which ones to do, no, I mean, other than, Comfy, again, when they say open source, that's a very wide field. Who actually, just give me a little more clarification what you're asking.
Whomever asked that, do you want to?
Oh, I think it was.
Sure. Yeah, I'm looking for programs that you can access the programming. You can see the programming. You can make your alterations to the programming. It is open source.
Do you know about Do you know about Comfy UI?
I do not.
That's the answer. Then I would look that up.
I have another question here. When you have a fully filmed documentary or are moving into post, where do you begin leveraging AI to help expedite the editing process?
What would you like to do?
LR.
That's me. We just wrapped a documentary, and right now we're at the phase where we've sorted all our footage. We're good. Now we need to start putting it into a sequence and sorting it into the proper, order. How would you suggest we use AI to help us get that ball rolling and do it fast?
You mean the actual footage?
Or a script, we can,
No, script you could do. So there is editing AI out there. It's really crude. It will eventually take my job. So I'm just noting that. But on the other hand, there's part of me that I'm always torn by these things. I'm excited by this technology and then I'm afraid of it. It's never going to do it better than me. But so anyway, but as far as doing things that move the picture around or that control your timeline isn't quite there. In a year, it'll be here and probably doing all kinds of things. That being said, there are things that LTX Studio is one version of that. There are some things that will automatically try to do some stuff. They'll write a script and they will grab stock footage and throw it on top. And they will. So there are a zillion apps now that will automatically, I can say, write a 2-minute thing about building the pyramids. It will write the script. It will turn it into voice. It will add music. And it will grab stock footage and put it on top, or it will do AI generated video on top of all that. It will be terrible. And YouTube is now full of these kind of things. You can you can get an example of what's on there, but eventually those will get better, But as far as you go, the thing you could do now is the best you can do is you get is it interviews or what kind of footage is it?
It's
Interviews?
just talking heads right now and a little bit of B-roll.
Yeah. So for the interviews, essentially you get transcripts, right? So there are text documents that you can then give to ChatGPT or other things. Again, you have to be okay with knowing that, you know, the rights or privacy may be, but just to clarify that, by the way, it's no different than you upload things to Google Drive, or other things, or, you know, Outlook in the cloud and things like that, where even if they tell you it's private, is, you know, so it's that level of risk, I think, at the moment. I don't think it's a huge risk, but again, if it's something very, very private, you don't want to do it.
Another question here from Heather Lenz.
Well, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Heather Lenz, basically just told you how to make a whole documentary from what you got there. Unbelievable. Heather Lenz, amazing filmmaker and professor, Kusama Infinity. I'm throwing that out there because that's an amazing movie. She said, thanks for sharing this info, Philip. Since the documentary community always has a lot of concerns about ethical issues, how do you think that they will adapt to this new tech? Recently, I was on a webinar about a film grant, and we were told that all images created by AI should be labeled, which would be which could disturb the flow of the storytelling if that happened to each frame of a video made using AI. On the flip side, most documentary filmmakers struggle with funding, and this tech could be very useful in many solutions. So will we adapt with this new tech? It's a question.
Yeah, I'll be honest. There's so much panic about this situation. You know, it's like, if you've been working long enough, this is not a new thing. We've had reenactments forever. Photoshop came out, you know, when Photoshop came out, we kind of went through a wave of this kind of stuff. And so the notion of what you should label or not label, you know, is not new. And I see some people here who worked with me at ABC News, and at ABC News, we had a gigantic 3-ring binder, you know, full of guidelines for how to deal with all kinds of different things. That being said, I think that it's a great creative challenge, you know, how do you do it? So I think that the solutions that are offered, when someone offers you the solution, well, it should be labeled. That is someone who doesn't really understand the creative process or who's not invested in it, right?
Yeah.
Just stick it on there. But it does force you to do things so that, like, you know, for instance, one example, and this is a little too overt even for my taste, but one example is that, Alex Gibney, very often in his films, he does reenactments, or he'll do, you know, he makes films that are just interviews and he's got to show something. So he did a film about, I forget what it was called, but it was about the governor of New York who had gotten caught in a scandal, right? And so there was an interview with no, it was.
Oh, another one. Sorry.
Oh, everyone has their own, yeah. But anyway, it was a woman, I think it was a prostitute, who was like one of the main people testifying in the case. Anyway, she didn't want to appear on camera, understandable, and so he got an actress to play her, and then you saw him setting up the interview room, putting up lights, showed the actor, you know, and then there was narration from him saying we couldn't do this, and so we got an actor. So that was one way of just telling you, and then he didn't have to tell you again throughout the rest of the film. That's one way to do it. Other ways to do it are, I actually think that when you have, what's going to happen is, what's real is always going to be in the extreme minority of the footage in the piece, right? And so I think you want to highlight that, what's real as real. And so really go out of your way to maybe make that precious, using editing, narration, graphics, whatever, to say this is real and this other stuff is not. You know, I did a documentary about Einstein, and we happened to get, it was an amazing thing. We were the first people to get to show Einstein's actual notebook where he figured out the universe. And so, you know, when we show that, we said, this is the actual thing, and we do that kind of stuff. And other times you could tell that we were just doing animation because we were in the middle of some scientific explanation, and it was clear that this was fanciful. So yeah, just use your visual grammar and visual skills to make that difference.
Sorry, there's one that if you use AI in your documentary work, images or video, how do you indicate the AI source on the credit list of the film? And so I presume there is a requirement for distribution purposes. So it's in line with what you were just saying.
Not
Literally,
yet.
yeah, literally, there's no things. Interestingly, the one slightly related thing, or just real quick, the Copyright Office of the U.S. Copyright Office actually published a finding that kind of started to work on this problem of what can you copyright and what can you not copyright. And interestingly, they came out with the part one of their thing. It was like there's a division of the U.S. government that actually got some productive work done, and they published this thing that said basically, and this is a weird finding, but they basically said when you ask AI to generate something, that first thing that comes out, if you don't do anything to it, cannot be copywritten because it was created by a machine. It's as if they were saying it's as if it was a natural object. It's a little bit strange, but okay. But if you manipulate it, which we do hundreds of times by the time we finish, right? Then now it is yours because you put a lot of work into it. So it's a human thing. You can copyright it. It's yours as much as anything. But at what point does it shift from not being yours to being yours? Do you have to manipulate it one time, two times, three times? And they said, we understand we need to define that number. We'll do that next time. And they were about to do that, I think, and the two top people got fired from the office, and they're out. So I don't know what's happening.
Oh
So
gosh.
chaos.
Okay. We
Yeah.
have another question from AK. What steps would you recommend to take an existing 10-minute video with a historical content that currently is boring and made by a professor and ask it to make an interesting 3-minute video with all and info mentioned in the 10-minute video?
I'm sorry, what's the question again?
I can repeat it.
Yes, please, AK.
So it's just a matter of, taking an existing boring humanities video with historical content. And the goal is to just try to give it a new spin where it's actually digestible and people will actually listen to the whole thing. So my goal is like, how do I take this and what steps would you recommend to just figure out how to make a 3-minute version?
Well, I get to recommend a news site too. Yet another bonus. Cool. There's a site called Opus, OPUS. And again, this won't be the perfect solution, but an interesting thing about Opus is that this is actually one of the first things in the editing space that is actually kind of scary good. It goes through long pieces and pulls snippets. So the essential idea is that it's meant for putting something on social media. So let's say you just did an hour-long podcast. It'll go through that hour-long podcast and pull out however many you want, little snippets from the show, and make them ready for social media. It does all kinds of things. It puts
so cool. Yeah. It just says its opening line is 1 long video, 10 viral clips, 10 times faster. So cool.
Yeah. Now, as a reminder to everyone, if any of you checked out anything in AI and were disappointed by it, go back if it's been a while, because I wrote off Opus as bad. And the first time I saw it, it was really bad. And then a number of friends of mine who were real professionals said, no, it's really good now. And I went back and I was like, oh yeah, it really works. It not only pulls, it's not like it's pulling a solid chunk, like, oh, here's 2 minutes where they were talking. It pulls that 2-minute chunk, and then it takes out the ums and ahs, and it cuts it like an editor.
Amazing. That's so cool. Thanks.
And you can do it. So that would be a start. But the other thing is, without doing that, you could what I would do is I would just take the transcript of the 10-minute thing, give it to ChatGPT, and say, start to talk to it, show it to me this way, show it to me that way, show me this, show me that. And I also, just so you know, I am not out of the loop, right? I've got the full thing with me on the side, or I've already read through it. I'm engaged with it too, because I want to know what ChatGPT is ignoring. But
absolutely,
we work together to manipulate it.
So cool. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
Steph Smith, working on illustrations for a book. I want to take existing images, standardize them, and diversify. Look, can I do this in Midjourney? Or please recommend an illustration AI app. not a Photoshop girl.
Photoshop girl?
I don't know what that part of
Or
it
is that
was.
like girl?
Not a
Not a
Photoshop.
Photoshop girl. So
Yeah.
whatever you've got for AI, she's interested.
So Midjourney has recently added a couple of really cool features. One is called personalization, where you can establish a style, and you could establish all kinds of different styles, right? So you get a bunch of images that look like, in other words, I actually, here, let me go back to, I have my, sure, let me show you real quick. Okay, so in my Midjourney,
it's unbelievable. Like if you look at these images, I'm sitting there all day posting for my film, and as I go through, I'm like watching something, and I realize about a minute through, oh, this isn't a real person, or this isn't really even an influencer. And it's going to replace all the influencers. Like it's unbelievable.
So you can do things like create, there's also another thing called mood boards. Essentially, I grabbed a bunch of Turner paintings and threw them all together. And so then now I can create anything I can type, if I choose up here, when I go to create a new image, I can say, pull it from Turner paintings. Or so they have profiles and mood boards. They're slightly different, but basically the same idea. You can have a collection of images that have a particular look. Here's another one here called Frank Lloyd Wright. I had a bunch of colored pencil drawings of like beautiful Frank Lloyd Wright architecture, and I could create something in that style. So.
Oh, interesting. So first you upload it as a mood board for it to learn from, and then you tell it.
You create the mood board. Yeah.
Got it.
Although so the more old-fashioned way to do it, that's a little bit less sophisticated, but also might get you there, is when you go to create a new prompt. So here it's total blank canvas, right? Where it says add images. Once you click that, you get this pop-up window that says image prompts, style references, or omni reference. Style reference you can do. So for instance, I could take this one of those pyramid drawings that look like a textbook thing and put it in as a style reference. And then, I can make a new thing of like, what do I want to say? The Empire State Building. I don't know.
Wait, you're saying this is less sophisticated? The better way is to do what from a blank canvas? Create a mood board first? How do you do that?
A mood board, because a mood board can have
different types.
20 or 100 examples.
Got it.
It's
got it.
A lot more. Yeah, this is using one thing, but yeah. And then you can adjust also, again, with any drawing, you can adjust the strength of that style.
Got it.
So do you want it to come from the mood board? Yeah.
Are there any last questions that are just pressing? You have to ask him, and just go ahead and raise your hand or turn your camera on so we can see you, so we pick you. Because I'm not seeing. Mabel, go for it.
Mabel, you're muted. Mabel, you're muted. Mabel, you're muted.
Thank you. A couple of questions. VO 11 Labs, how do you get 11 Labs to give the VO that you get from them to be a little more nuanced and have more inflections, that it feels real? This is for temp VO purposes in documentary. And the other one is, there's tons of apps that use that are promising transcripts in different languages. Which one is your favorite, or is Premiere, the latest edition of Premiere, the best way to do it when you're dealing with different languages like Spanish or something?
So let me go one at a time before I forget the other one. So the first one was, how do you adjust the inflection of the voices in 11 Labs?
Right. Can you get more realistic delivery for VO?
Yep. Let me take you right there.
And then we're going to be closing after he asks these two questions. because he's actually given us extra time today, which is really nice of him. I think we got most of the questions.
So you see on the right, when you have a voice chosen, you have a bunch of different settings. So by adjusting all these different little things, you can really tweak the thing.
Nice.
There are also tricks you can learn, not complicated, just read the help, the help guide. You can do things like have it whisper or really emphasize this word or that word. You can actually give it exact pronunciations, things like that. So basically you can do an enormous amount. Very, very sophisticated stuff. So the other question was about
Mabel.
The other question is, what's your favorite transcript app? Is it Premiere Pro?
Transcript.
Transcript for other languages other than English. It's better in English, of course, but like is Premiere 25.2 better than any other
I'll tell you this,
apps up there?
It depends how accurate you need it. I actually still use human transcription. Imagine that. So there's a site called rev.com. There are many. This is by no means the best one, but
they don't do other languages in Rev, unfortunately.
Really?
Yeah, as the last time I checked, they didn't. It's been like that for a while.
I think they do now, because I recently had to get a translation for Spanish, but I know that there was some issues. It seems like to me we're just not there yet but so you're using real people, huh, Philip? That's really nice. Some people have a job still.
Only in the rare case where I need that actual perfect transcription. So that is very rare. For quick and dirty work, which is the vast majority of what I do, like I only get that when it's really important. I use, honestly, so I edit in Avid, and it does its own transcription, and Premiere also, as you said, does its own transcription. So both of those are totally fine. And the thing about those is that it's within this thing, so you just click on the word and it takes you right to that place in the footage. Can't beat that. So even when it's not perfect, it's like pretty good. But when you're editing and you're starting to, if you're Frankenbiting or you need to create that perfect sentence, I need to find her saying the word castle, and I need to be able to search for that word and find that. So yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and finish up now. Philip,
sorry, let me mention one other one.
No, please. I just am trying to be considerate of your time.
Oh no, I'm fine. Descript is a very, very popular app, which has a lot of other capabilities too. So I would look into that. Yeah.
Would that do something like, let's say I'm trying to have my film in Polish, or I'm trying to have it in Spanish? So
well, actually, honestly, 11 Labs. So from those who have tested all of them, 11 Labs transcription is considered to be incredibly good, probably the best. I hesitate to call it the best because they're all very close, but 11 Labs is definitely one of those. When it comes to other languages, yeah, I don't know. I depend on you guys to.
Yeah, and again, you're putting in your whole film's transcription then, and then you're chancing that someone can take it. So a real person or a real company probably right now, and they can do that too. So, I mean, you're chancing.
But when you say take it, I would just mention, I just want to maybe dispel one myth. AI does not copy things. When AI is trained, the thing it looked at, even for instance, the New York Times is suing them for this or that. It does not take the thing wholesale. And when you ask it to create a picture of the pyramids, it is not going back and looking at other pictures. Those pictures do not exist. They're not in the memory. What it does do, and you might say, well, this is just as bad, but what it does do is it actually just notes statistical things about it. It says, well, this word is usually pretty close to that word, and that's essentially all it does in an extremely complicated way. Or this pixel is often close to that pixel. In that, when someone says dog, when there's dogs, often these colors are next to each other, things like that. So
interesting.
I don't know if that makes you feel any better, but
Okay, so thank you, Philip, so much for leading such an insightful and educational class.
And I want to end with just something, just inspiring words or something like that. I'm going to reiterate my sort of guidelines, as I was saying before, is that when you work with it, remember to work with it again and again and again and again, and treat it like an assistant, with all the respect you would give your assistant. Just talk to it like normal, when in doubt, don't feel you have to learn this or that. Just talk to it like normal, but you may need to keep asking it, in different ways. Give it examples, this is one thing people just don't know, and you should, if I could say that 1,000 times, give it an example of something you like. You'll get much closer to getting the thing you want. And lastly, it sounds kind of woo-woo, whatever, but think of it like a dance, that you and the AI are kind of doing this thing together. I asked you to have that horse fly, and instead you did something insane. So let me pull you back and let's do this other thing. And then it does some other thing. Oh, actually, that's kind of interesting. So do that, but don't do that other thing. I think that's the best way. I have as I mentioned, I have a weekly get together that I would love any of you who are interested to join. I'll put my my contact info in the chat here.
That's generous of you.
So this is my website, and you can go there and you can contact me through my website. And I do this AI Cafe. It's every Monday night. And for anyone who's playing around, especially in people who are working in film and exploring with AI, it's a great place to get together. Everybody's trading tips and tricks and all that kind of stuff. So come there and check it out. And, just stay, anything you guys are doing, I'm interested in hearing about, because all of us sort of are trying, we're all out in the dark in the forest exploring with these things. So it's fun times. Thank you. And thank you for having me, Julie.
Oh, thank you, Philip. You lead these, and they're super insightful and educational, but also I just think you have like this remarkable way of making it. It's so complex, and it just, you take that subject matter and you just kind of make it approachable, and you just, it's empowering. I feel like it's empowering. I mean, my God, I learned how to speak Spanish today and Chinese all in one sitting. So, really, truly, we really appreciate your knowledge and your perspective. And I do feel like you're one of the most ethical people that I know. So it's so nice. And I just want to thank also our members and our guests for joining us on a Saturday. I know you want to go eat lunch and be with your families. If you're not yet a member and you'd like to be, we put the link in the chat for joining. And I just really also want to give a big thank you to Nicole for doing tech today. It's not always easy having to juggle so many different things at once. So thank you, Nicole. I'd also like to thank again our community partners, The Vine, Larson Associates, Jewish Film Institute, Black Women Directors, Women in Film Cincinnati, New York Women in Film and Black Film Space. We have a few announcements. We have a couple of events coming up that will, I think really, really interesting. As a reminder, we will host our next monthly script incubator on May 19th. If you are a member and you want to gather with others in a virtual setting on June 9th, we're going to be having our next monthly meeting just June 9th. We're also doing Pitcher Pro, which is once a year. It's huge. Mark your calendars for this. It's super, super important. If you want to practice your pitch beforehand, she does a free Pitcher Pro night pre-pitch practice. There's a lot of P's there. With James DeSandrone, and that's on June 6th is the Pitcher Pro practice. But on June 23rd, we host the Pitcher Pro night. And
sorry, there you go.
Okay, people can understand. We already have 11 pros attending. That's producers, managers, streaming services. So those are people that are looking for projects. So, and some of them are just like, okay, I just have an idea. So this is pretty awesome. So registration opens May 23rd, and it will be announced that each pro is what they're looking for specifically, so you can pick your pro. We also have another event in development in July that is being co-hosted with the Mixer, the Vine, where we will hear from another AI speaker on how to use it. And if you're interested in connecting with members in your area, we are now doing some local meetups, in-person meetups. So we're having one monthly in San Francisco, Oakland, and Redwood City. So we're kind of all over the place there. So again, go to our website for those. And again, Nicole, thank you so much. We also have a merchandising store. So if you have not already done so, check it out. We have so many cool sweatshirts. They're really soft. I love my sweatshirts and my hoodies, and they say, you can have it say director, or producer, or writer, or whatever you'd like. If you would like a discount code to become a member, today it's Shane15. So write that down because we give a nice discount there. And that code is only good for 1 month and expires on June 17th. And we're going to put that in the chat as well. And if you're bored this weekend, I'm going to plug my film. It's playing at the Grand Lake Theater. It's also playing at the Larkspur Theater in at the Lark Theater. And it's an independent film. So if you know anybody that might want to watch it, it's called The True Story of Tamar de Lempicka and the Art of Survival. And sorry for the cheap plug, but I had to. And thank you all for coming. Have a great rest of the afternoon. And again, thanks, Nicole, and thanks, everybody. And thank you, Philip. I love you. You're such a good friend, and you're so smart. And we really, really, really appreciate you because you just demystify all of this. And drive safe.
Thank you, everyone. Bye now.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. I'm joking. Obviously, no one's driving.